The Wednesday edition of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream, broadcasting 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 on Facebook Live, and all of our shows archived, available to watch on demand at youtube.com/lcpios, keeping you connected with student athletes, coaches, Lewis and Clark community members, and alumni as we try to now move into the summer months and keep connected. Try to keep a sense of a little bit of normalcy as it was an odd spring, and that's one of the topics we'll talk with our guest coming up here in just a few moments. I'm Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We're the Pioneers located in Portland, Oregon, a Northwest Conference member institution competing against other schools from Northwest Oregon and throughout the state of Washington, and a member of the NCAA Division III world, which, with 430 institutions nationwide, gives our student athletes an opportunity to compete throughout the country, and then with Lewis and Clark's robust overseas study program, a chance to also experience the world and learn in a variety of places. It was really cool yesterday. Our guest was women's golfer and a class of 2020 graduate Annika Klunk. She spent a full year overseas study in Munich, Germany. So if you missed that or any of our previous shows, again, youtube.com/lcpios. In just a couple minutes, we'll bring in our guest for today, a longtime head athletic trainer for the Pioneers, over 30 years at Lewis and Clark, and the interim director of physical education and athletics, Mark Pietrok, will join us. Again, unprecedented time with the way that the spring season went down, cancellation of all of the events because of the coronavirus pandemic. We'll talk to him and reflect on that and look ahead because it was a still pretty incredible and positive 2019-20 overall for Lewis and Clark athletics. It started all in the fall, and so we'll kind of get a perspective from him, especially given his longevity with the program. We'll talk to him in just a little bit. You can ask a question for Mark or make any suggestions for future guests in the comments below on Facebook Live. Email us sports@lclark.edu. You can also reach us on Instagram and Twitter at LC Pioneers. A couple of things we want to let you know about before we get to Mark Pietrok is the all sportsmanship teams have been announced from the Northwest Conference. You can go to nwcsports.com. We'll also share these on lcpioneers.com in the near future, but a member of each institution for each sport selected for all sportsmanship. That announcement has been made at nwcsports.com, and you can check that out right now. Congratulations to all of the all sportsmanship team selections throughout the conference. Also, this week with NBC Sports Northwest and Rip City Radio 620 out of Portland, the Oregon Sports Awards are announcing all of their winners. And while no Lewis and Clark student athletes will be selected this year, Zeke Crawford was a nominee for the Ad Rushman Small College Athlete of the Year. The finalists, there's four of them. Congratulations to Mitchell Fink, Joseph Gonzalez, Mason Cook, and Wyatt Smith. But Zeke was amongst that group that was potentially going to be a finalist. And we've seen Lewis and Clark student athletes picked as finalists before with the Oregon Sports Award, and Zeke, off an all region type year, definitely was deserving of that nomination. So congratulations to him, and again, all the finalists for that award. Last but not least, lcpioneers.com is the place to go if you want to keep in touch with everything Lewis and Clark athletics, including past shows. A campus tour video is there as well. A couple of our coaches did a great job capturing a full hour and a half campus tour, condensed it into a time lapse of 6 minutes. All of that information available at lcpioneers.com. And with that said, let's bring in our guest for today, longtime head athletic trainer, Mark Pietrok, who's now the interim director of physical education and athletics at Lewis and Clark. Petey, it's good to see you and bring you into lcpioneers.com Live. How's your Wednesday treating you?
So far, so good, Ryan. Glad to be here and happy to be talking to all our friends out there.
Absolutely. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know in the comments below on Facebook Live. We talked about this in the open. It was a transition for every single person that we've had on this show, really, whether they're an alumnus or a current student athlete. With the spring season being canceled and classes moving remotely, everyone had to adjust. From the top of the department as the interim AD, how did that look, and what were some of the things that you thought, Lewis and Clark did exceptionally well getting everyone transitioned?
Ryan, I've been in higher education for over 35 years, and I've never dealt with anything like this at all. Jay Losi and I were talking one day and said, hey, Coach, do you ever remember anything like this? Him and I are kind of in the same generation, and we couldn't come up with anything. It was shifting sands on a daily basis for us, and trying to kind of keep up with what we thought might be happening and whatnot. And I was meeting almost, on a few days, almost hourly with the staff, kind of updating them and seeing where we were headed, and once we kind of recognized that, this thing was going to come to a close pretty quickly. Our staff did a fabulous job of pivoting. I think about our spring sports, and we were heartbroken that we had to end, and our seniors had to end that way, and yet our coaches turned right around, and we were able to have a senior day celebrations and whatnot in each our own way. So I was really proud of them. Coaches are kind of accustomed to dealing with the unknown as it comes at you as they coach games, and they really showed it in how they dealt with this. Shifted very quickly into out of the competitive athletic mode and into the competitive mode of the academic world. Obviously our primary goal here is to educate young people, and not only was their athletic experience, really changing and coming to an abrupt end, but their whole educational piece was changing as well to something we've not done before. Lewis and Clark is renowned for our in-person, experiences between our professors and our students, and so that really had to change very quickly too. And so I was really proud of our coaches who were able just to shift, on a dime with our students to really support them in the new kind of academic arena they were dealing with. And I don't have all the numbers yet, but Associate Athletic Director Sharon Sexton, who oversees our academic piece, kind of informed me yesterday with some kind of preliminary numbers that looks like this may be our best academic year in recent memory. So I'm hopeful, waiting for those final grades to be done. But yeah, I'm really proud of how that went. But yeah, it was I was tap dancing as fast as I could, Ryan, to be honest.
Well, you brought up some of those programs that had those senior celebrations. I mean, six sports primarily compete in the spring, and that's 10 different teams when you look at
Yeah.
men's and women's across the board. You were talking with Coach Losi, who, again, like you've been involved in collegiate athletics for a very long time. What's the magnitude when you sit there and think about, a full basically month and a half to 2 months of a spring season just completely wiped off the board, unprecedented times with a pandemic. I mean, what's this been like in terms of something you've never seen before in your long time at Lewis and Clark?
It's every day I'm like, what next? How are we going to deal with this? I think the thing that's is most difficult, what is hardest for me, Ryan, is that over the years I've had many mentors and staff people I've worked with that been very close with, and we're a very collaborative bunch, and so it goes without saying that a lot of times we would say something along these lines of, "Hey, how did this look in the past? How did we manage this in the past?" And I can remember when Coach Losi and I were talking about it, and the only thing we could even come close to was the 9/11 situation, and I can remember back then, we're trying to decide whether we should play on that Saturday and whatnot, but that was just like for one weekend. This thing is like nothing that we've ever seen, or we couldn't imagine it either, and so there was nobody who had past history to guide us, and so really had to lean on the staff, and we would talk through things, and bounce ideas off of ourselves, and I'm just so fortunate that we really do have an understanding staff, very collaborative, and everybody kind of comes from a different area and brings their piece to the table, and then we work through it, and I think we've done about as well a job as you could. But yeah, not having anybody who's ever experienced this that you could kind of lean on and say, hey, what does this look like? What this looked like in the past. That was probably something that I've never dealt with in my career, as far as higher education, or really anything I've really dealt with in my professional career.
He's Mark Pietrok, the interim AD at Lewis and Clark, head athletic trainer, joining us on lcpioneers.com live Tuesday through Friday at 11:30. And one thing I've been trying to do, Mark, throughout this whole pandemic is try to stay positive and find the positives out of the effects that have been. And this show has been fun because it's been a chance to talk to student athletes, kind of, focus 15, 20 good minutes in conversation. And with that's come out a lot of positives about this past year. And it started with the fall. When you look at the current status of the Lewis and Clark athletic programs, what do you see as some of the strengths that have emerged or evolved through the 2019-20 season?
Well, Ryan, I think you and I spoke about it during the winter. On the last time I was on, one of the interviews with you is, we really started off in a positive light this fall with our fall sports programs, really, having some unbelievable successes that were kind of somewhat unexpected. I mean, every team in the fall, was predicted to finish someplace in the league, and every one of them, did better than their prediction. Some of them, amazingly, I think of Matt Burrow, our new cross country coach, who we brought in, in early August, and basically with the same student athletes that we'd had the year before, both of his teams were predicted to finish last in conference, and just had an amazing season. And both teams finished third in the conference. And that just kind of was just this great vibe. Obviously, football continued to build on what they're doing, and that always helps. Our women's soccer program had their best season ever, and so and so that got us off to a great start. And then we get into the winter sports, and really saw some great things go on there, and some real development as the season went along. We hosted the Northwest Conference Swimming Championships this year, and it's the first time I've been up to that event in quite some time. And wow, what a great event that was for our teams, who really had some great, strong swims, really culminating a season where they just built as things went along. So we were pretty excited to see where we were going to kind of finish in what I thought was going to be, you know, um, probably the best finish Lewis and Clark has had in the All Sports Trophy in a very long time. Softball started off, sweeping their opening series, and the same with baseball, and against teams that were, picked to be top of the league. And so we were pretty excited. The track athletes were, really looking forward. They'd had a good, winter season, and we thought we were going to have some real successes there too, and whatnot. And the other programs as well. I mean, tennis and golf, we were excited to see what that was going to go with. So we had, and then our rowers, our rowing program was really showing some excellent signs that they were going to be really successful this year. So, I think there was a real kind of level of optimism, uh, for us that we haven't had in a while. As far as this late in the year, going, wow, this our program is really has some momentum, and so yeah, it was pretty rough to all of a sudden hit that brick wall and have everything stop. And whatnot. Kind of pretty heartbreaking, like I said. But we've really got a resilient bunch, and they turned on a dime and did what they had to do. But yeah, it's been an exciting year to see our growth, and I can tell you right now, Ryan, that this staff is really working hard with the recruiting piece, and I am very hopeful that we're going to bring in a really fantastic class. The numbers look really good right now, and so hopefully the idea will be to try to continue some of that momentum once we get started again, and really kind of build on what we did this year.
And now, when you look toward that future, I mean, not only specifically with the incoming 2021 class, but just the future of the department, some of the ways that alumni and friends can continue to stay engaged, help us fulfill needs, and kind of shaping the future of athletics at Lewis and Clark. I imagine that's not ending regardless of the pandemic. How are we working toward continuing to move up the standings in things like the Northwest Conference All Sports Trophy?
Well, Ryan, I mean, I think we're looking for all different ways of engagement. Making lemonade out of lemons. we've really looked at some different things, including this show that you're doing, as different ways of engagement that I think we will, integrate into our programs as we move forward. And this momentum we've got going is not going to continue without the assistance of our alumni and our friends out there. We're going to look to really re-engage the Pioneer Athletic Club in some of the events we do there, and I think this is kind of open to our eyes to how we can engage people who care about Pioneer athletics in ways that we haven't might not have looked at in the past. And while distance may separate us, I think we've come up with some tools that work pretty well for us to kind of bring us together. So I'm really hopeful. I think there's some things that we're going to do. Pile Stream will be a big part of that, and just I'm actually kind of pretty excited to some of the things that our coaches have been doing. Emily Hayes is our volleyball coach who does her coffee chats and whatnot. Just new tools that we figured out how to engage people and let them know what we're doing, because I think there's some pretty special stuff going on Palatine Hill. So I think it's only going to get better, to be honest.
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason, too, with the show that we ask you to suggest people that you want to have on. We'll show some of the upcoming guests that we have, including keeping more of the alumni engaged, too. That was something that Raul Mion said. He is a super prideful Lewis and Clark alumnus, rather. We had him on last Friday, and he thought that this was one of those ways that we'll continue to try to keep alumni engaged. So certainly we want to hear from you everywhere, from communicating to us in the comments below or email sports@lclark.edu. Now, Mark, I've talked about you as being the interim AD, and we're kind of talking to you in that perspective. But for 30 years, athletic training has been your passion and your contribution to Lewis and Clark. And recently, an honor to be in your trade publication with Cats. Describe kind of how neat that was to have, your professional trade organization recognize your years at Lewis and Clark, and how you've reflected on 3 decades.
Yeah, that was kind of a real nice thing that went on. Actually, one of my peers at a conference school kind of spearheaded that, and kind of got that going. And then people were wanting to know how I got to where I did, and kind of the history and whatnot. And hopefully I can help somebody else out there that's looking to, in the world of athletic training, and what it can bring to yourself and the passions that I have, and what it means to work in that profession. Obviously, Ryan, that's been an area that I've been passionate about for many years. My ability to have experience with student athletes and help them on their journey through athletics and education is kind of been the thing that has driven me over the years. And so I'm kind of a humble individual, but yeah, it was proud. I showed it to my dad, my 83-year-old dad, and said, "Look, Dad, that college education I got 40 years ago, it might have paid off a little bit." So from that standpoint, but it's always been my goal to try to be a role model, and some days I do better than others, but yeah, that did mean quite a bit to me.
Well, and on the subject of athletic training too, I mean, when you look at Lewis and Clark and the cohesion you have with the staff, Jeremy and Tara have been with you a long time. How big of an asset is that to the student athlete to choose to compete at Lewis and Clark because they have a group that's worked together for so long?
Well, I think consistency, in any part of athletics really means a great deal. Jeremy was a former student and an alumnus, so he kind of sees things from both perspectives, and been with me 17 years, and Tara's been with me 14 years, and she's a former student of my first assistant, Emily Kozderka. So we our ability to kind of know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and things of that nature, I think really help us in how we deal with the student athlete, and help them succeed in their passions and whatnot. Not only that, like our team doctors have been with us for, Dr. Sandmeyer, our orthopedic's been with us for, I think, 14 years, and we've been working with OHSU since the beginning of their sports medicine fellowship program. Our first sports medicine fellow is now the head of the program. And then our collaboration with Pacific's graduate program and the students that they've sent to us. And now, Natalie Tran, who worked with us this year to replace my position while I was being the athletic director. So, these relationships we've built over time have really allowed us to, I think, provide, some of the best healthcare that you see at the Division III level. I say that proudly. And I do honestly believe it. And I think when our coaches bring students to campus, they bring them through our area to show parents that, we do care about our students. And one of the reasons I've stayed at Lewis and Clark as long as I have, Ryan, is the commitment I've had from the college about, the healthcare and the commitment to the students as they participate in athletics. And I think, going into the fall, that will never be more important. So, Lewis and Clark's got a long history of in that area of being highly committed. And so that, that always helps.
We appreciate all you've done to help Lewis and Clark athletics and this interim role as athletic director for a second time. Best of luck helping keep us on track as Lewis and Clark is certainly intending to have all of our classes on campus and open for the fall. We continue to work toward that goal. Mark Pietrok, thank you for joining us on lcpioneers.com live.
Thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate the opportunity.
That's fun to talk to Petey. Pete is a good guy. We appreciate him so much to help us with all the things that he does from the athletic training standpoint, and then to step in the interim AD role. I believe that our administration, you mentioned Sharon Sexton as well. We have a lot of people who not only are top of mind with our student athletes, but definitely demonstrate that leadership, especially during this time, to try to keep everything on track as we work toward that goal of being open in the fall and having our students on campus. Because I certainly miss it now, over 2 months removed from the last time I've even been to campus. And it's coincidentally, Mark and I are going to be talking about more ways to be able to communicate, how Lewis and Clark athletics is going to try to do our best to have everything as normal as possible in the coming months. So it's tough. We certainly continue to wish you to stay safe, and we'll do the best we can to take care of one another during some unprecedented times. So good appearance from Mark, and big thanks to him for being a huge asset to Lewis and Clark for over 30 years. We flip-flop Mark because he has more AD duties tomorrow. We were originally going to have him on Thursday, so instead tomorrow will be Chris Fonts, the head coach of men's and women's swimming at Lewis and Clark. And much like Mark, one of our longest tenured members on the staff, Chris has been the head coach of swimming now for nearly 15 years. So looking forward to talk to him. Conference Championships was hosted by Lewis and Clark this year. They had some record-breaking moments again, and a pretty decent roster coming back next year. I'm pretty excited about what Lewis and Clark has ahead for the future of Pioneer Swimming. Also, Joseph Fastuca will join us on Friday. He's a member of Campus Living at Lewis and Clark. So Lewis and Clark Athletics, part of the Division of Student Life, as is Campus Living, and with the show, an opportunity to bring on different folks who are involved in shaping the lives of students and student athletes at Lewis and Clark. So excited to talk to Joseph as an area director, what his job is and how Campus Living supports our students. Next week, we continue to add to that list along with Sarah and Peyton. We're going to have Reed Atia join us as well, former Lewis and Clark men's tennis, all conference caliber, 4 times all Northwest Conference selection. He's a recent graduate from grad school, and we'll talk to him about what that experience was like and how Lewis and Clark set him up for that as well. So that's kind of what we have going on. We invite you to go to our YouTube page and stay connected with the show. You can see all of the past shows available at youtube.com/lcpios. There's a playlist of all of our old shows online on YouTube, and we'll continue to post those on lcpioneers.com as well. Last thing we want to bring it to your attention too is some alumni events. The Lewis and Clark alumni group is working on trying to keep some virtual events going. So go to Lewis and Clark on the internet, lclark.edu, and you can find the alumni page and see some of the things, whether it's virtual happy hours for class reunions or different speakers or workshops involving either Lewis and Clark alums or people connected to them. That's a pretty exciting thing that's going on too. So be sure to check that out, lclark.edu. So until tomorrow when we talk to Coach Fonts, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us on lcpioneers.com live, Tuesday through Friday at 11:30. We will see you again tomorrow. And until then, goodbye, everybody.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the 2 students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The brown bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the brown bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities. So it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.